Week in Review. Why are Jews so upset over a piece of legislation in the Knesset? Finding a good Samaritan on the Upper West Side, and saying farewell to Israel's latest ambassador to the United Nations. It's the Jewish news that's changing your world on this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. It could lead to an historic rift between Jews in Israel and those in the United States, if you believe the claims of American Jewish organizations. But should you? American Jewish organizations have been crying foul over a bill in Israel's Knesset that would change how conversions are dealt with in their country. In the words of the Jewish federations, it would, quote, drive a wedge between Israel and the diaspora and cause significant damage to the diaspora-Israel relationship. The Union for Reform Judaism calls it a dangerous conversion bill that would have enormously divisive impact on Israel-diaspora relations at a very challenging time for Israel and the Jewish people. The Masorti or conservative movement in Israel declares the advancement of this legislation is offensive to the non-Orthodox streams, which reflect 85% of world Jewry. And in what's probably the most read criticism of the bill, an op-ed writer in the New York Times declares that it is hard to exaggerate the possible ramifications of the bill in which the beliefs of a tiny minority of the world's Jews are on the verge of becoming the Israeli government's definition of Judaism for all Jews. Are all these claims true? Is the conversion bill being considered in the Knesset something with such far-reaching consequences? We're hoping that TJC viewers can decide that for themselves. While it's evident that few critics of the bill have read it, as it's only available in the original Hebrew, we at the Jewish Channel have provided an English translation of the bill on our blog at newsdesk.tjctv.com. We encourage you to read the 2.5-page bill that's causing so much controversy and to come to your own conclusions. On the surface level, there are some clear inconsistencies between how the bill has been portrayed and what it says. For example, one will find many claims stating that it alters the law of return, the basic law in Israel that grants all Jews entry. But in the bill itself, there's no mention of the law of return. And while many critics assert it will adjust the notion of whom the state of Israel considers a Jew and reverse hard-won victories for Reform and conservative Judaism in the Israeli Supreme Court, the fact is that much like in the United States, the legislature in Israel cannot override the Israeli Supreme Court's decisions with standard legislation. Perhaps most significantly, many claim that this bill would provide the Chief Rabbinate of Israel authority over conversions. And while it certainly is true that such elements are part and parcel of the bill, it's also undeniable that that is already the case in Israel, where thousands of conversions have been invalidated by the Chief Rabbinate in recent years. As with so many issues, this one is far more complex than advocates are making it out to be. In this case, it would have been helpful and reasonable for at least those advocates who did read the bill in the original Hebrew to make it available in English for their constituents. Since they haven't, as a media organization providing information to a Jewish audience, we are glad to provide that for you. Again, you can find TJC's translation of the bill at our news blog at newsdesk.tjctv.com. Feel free to write your own comments or questions regarding the bill there as well. And now to a story where one young Jew decided to take matters into his own hands. This is a story of a good Samaritan, a young fellow who found a lost object and went to pretty extreme ends to try to return it. Rebecca Honig-Friedman reports.
To the untrained eye, this might look like any other black high-heel shoe. But those in the know would recognize it as a Christian Louboutin, a French designer shoe that, with its other half, retails as a pair for between $600 and $800. Fortunately for the owner of this shoe, Moshe Billet knew what to look for. Billet was crossing this busy intersection at West 96th Street and Broadway when he noticed a shoe lying on the ground.
I was coming from my apartment, going to my brother and sister-in-law's apartment. I saw this shoe just sitting there on the floor, and I spotted that red bottom.
That red bottom is the signature feature of a Christian Louboutin, and feeling for the owner, Billet decided to take action.
I decided I'm going to try to find this girl. This thing is valuable enough that she was probably off somewhere crying herself to sleep.
Billet posted notices on Facebook, Craigslist, and Twitter, and pasted flyers around the neighborhood. But instead of finding the shoe's owner, he's found himself in the spotlight of New York media attention. Several local blogs, newspapers, and television news outlets have deemed his efforts to return a shoe in the wilderness of New York City remarkable. The first blogger who noticed Billet's flyers even doubted his sincerity, at first assuming the flyers were part of a viral marketing campaign for Christian Louboutin.
The New Yorker assuming there's some kind of fraud at work over here,
And it's no wonder. When we left the shoe unattended on the median where Billet found it, several pedestrians passed by without giving it a second glance. But for Billet, an Orthodox Jew and son of prominent New York area Rabbi Heshi Billet, who you may recognize from TJC's Rabbi's Roundtable program, returning a lost object is a religious imperative.
When we see something that appears to be lost and it apparently has an owner, the Torah uses an expression that is quite emphatic, Hashev teshivim, you shall surely return it. It means we have to go through extraordinary measures, return it again and again.
To find out about a surprising personal connection Billet has made through his search for the shoe's owner, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Rebecca. Several Israeli ambassadors are returning to Israel, and at one farewell party, international expressions of friendship were frequent. Rebecca Honig-Friedman was there.
Many Jews see the United Nations as a tense environment for Israel, but those UN states on Israel's side were on display last week as representatives of several countries gathered to bid farewell to Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gabriela Shalev, Israel's consul general in New York, Asaf Shariv, and other diplomats being recalled to Israel. At the event, hosted by the Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations, this group of international leaders struck an unusual tone in joining to praise Israel. In wishing Shalev farewell, the French ambassador, Gerard Araud, all but apologized to Shalev for the difficult work environment.
On behalf of my colleagues, I guess I can say that we all know that the United Nations is a frustrating place for an Israeli ambassador. It may also be frustrating for other ambassadors, but it's especially frustrating for our Israeli friends.
French ambassador also had specific praise for Shalev's work and what it represents for Israel.
Gabriela was a clear representative of the vibrant Israeli civil society, as representative of Israel as a state of law, as a democracy and a state of law. And Daniel was the best representative of the quality of the Israeli diplomatic corps. And the both of them have really, in a sense, represented everything that the state of Israel is standing for.
Other expressions of kind sentiment came from representatives of Germany, Morocco, the United States, and other countries. The United States ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, expressed her strong personal feelings for Shalev.
Gabby, I like to think that perhaps we've written our own little chapter in U.S.-Israeli relations over the past year and a half in New York and through our own very special relationship.
To hear from the departing dignitaries about their experiences with Israeli-U.S. relations, please tune in to the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
That's all for this week. For more news and analysis from the Jewish Channel during the week, please check out our blog at newsdesk.tjctv.com. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: IO Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Cable Channel 528, RCN Channel 268, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and Cox Cable Channel 1. For more information, visit tjctv.com.